It's very important to understand that I'm not giving medical advice. This should not be interpreted as medical advice in any way. I'm sharing my research and I'm sharing my experience. So I have a story with EMFs and which I'm going to go into. So this is in no way medical advice. Just want to be absolutely clear on that from the beginning. So here's an overview of today's presentation. Firstly, I'm going to talk about why I'm talking about this, why I'm here today talking about EMFs, electromagnetic fields. I'm going to talk about the controversy, what causes cancer, the science, the EMF science, you know, these 4 lines of evidence linking EMF exposures to cancer. I'm going to be talking about the landmark studies, yeah, so the big studies that you should know about. I'm going to also be talking about EMFs on wiring and dirty electricity, this phenomena known as dirty electricity, which few people know about, few people really understand. And I'm also going to be sharing solutions because that's really a very important part of what I do, and it's important to know right at the outset that there are solutions to this whole EMF question. So let's get started. So firstly, why am I talking about this? Well, I'm talking about this because I had an experience one day with my cell phone back in 2002. I put the cell phone to my head and I started to experience these rather bizarre symptoms initially that very quickly turned into debilitating symptoms just over the course of a few phone calls. And, you know, people say to me, well, Lloyd, how did you know it was your cell phone? Well, it was like, you know, cell phone next to the head, extreme pain, cell phone away, no pain. And this started with my cell phone, and then it developed. I was also getting a reaction with my computer, with my TV, with the radio in the car, and even with the corded landline. So this was like nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and it really kind of threw me for 6. And through the medical profession also, because I went to consult I went to consult my doctor, who sent me to numerous specialists, and basically the medical profession had no answer, had no solution really, and had very little understanding of this whole EMF question. So there were these immediate symptoms which I was experiencing, which were, you know, like the prickly skin, the hot head, the hot ear. And I'm sure that some of you that are watching that know what I'm talking about. You've experienced symptoms maybe when you're holding your cell phone, experiencing a tingling feeling when you're holding it, or maybe you're not well around Wi-Fi, or maybe you get brain fog. You know, could be unexplained symptoms. And I was lucky because I made, you know, I put the 2 and 2 together to make 4, because it was so clear, you know, the reaction I had to my cell phone. So I knew it was the cell phone. And then this put me on a course really over 10 years figuring this out and getting my health back on track. Really, for 2 years I was totally in the wilderness and thought I was going crazy. That's just by the by. But so this was back in 2002, and the good news is today there is a lot more information about this, although it is all rather confusing. And you know, so I'm going to hopefully remove some of the confusion here today. And just to say very briefly that this story has a happy ending, because I'm no longer hypersensitive. So I do still feel these EMFs, but I'm not getting the debilitating symptoms which I did. And so that's the good news. So what you should know is that about 5% of the population, and these obviously estimates, 5% of the population has symptoms which they associate with EMFs, and then about 35% have symptoms, but they don't realize EMFs are the cause. So what I'm saying here is that there are a lot of people who have diverse symptoms, and the symptoms are very because we're talking about cancer here today, but the EMFs impact the human body in every way imaginable, and there are thousands of studies on this. We're just focusing on cancer, but just know, you know, it's not just EMFs and cancer. Okay, so I've chose this topic because it's the big one, but there's much more to this than that. And so it's really the kind of the bigger picture is all these symptoms which EMFs can create, notably like brain fog, like fatigue, neurological symptoms, neurodegenerative symptoms, and the links between these exposures and a long list of diseases, not just cancer, but Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cardiovascular disease. Honestly, you name it, the list is very, very long indeed. So again, why am I talking about this? Just to be clear, so even if you're not experiencing symptoms, then know this, and this is that EMFs impact everybody. This is what the science is telling us. Okay, so even if you can't feel anything around EMFs, don't think that EMF, you shouldn't be you shouldn't be looking at this and addressing this for you, yourself, and your family, particularly if you've got kids, which is super important. And that's actually the reason that I started talking about this, because I'm a father, and the effects on children are worse. Children are more vulnerable than adults. And the second thing to understand is that these effects are cumulative. And again, this is what the research is saying, that the effects are cumulative. So the more you're exposed, the worse it gets. And that's what makes it very difficult to reverse this trend. And the third thing is that, so the research links these exposures to, lots of serious diseases, as I said, including cancer, which is what we're going to look at specifically today. So there is controversy behind this whole topic, and the controversy, there's various aspects to this controversy, and I don't particularly want to go into the controversy, but there is a lot of, there are reasons why this information is not being shared, which is not widely known, and it is to do, a lot of it is to do with money, and a lot of it is to do, EMFs are very powerful, have these effects on the body, and how the whole economic system is kind of, even though you might not realize it, because EMFs, selling off these licenses, which the governments are doing with the 5G and so on, and they've been doing up until now with the different generations of mobile technology, that generates a lot of money. And so that is one of the reasons why people are being kept in the dark, because the governments more than ever need money. And there is a lot of evidence here, which I've shared in my book, about this whole controversy side again. So, but just understand this about the controversy. So what the telecoms industry, what our governments are saying basically is that ionizing radio, there's, you can imagine we've got an electromagnetic spectrum, and there's a line down this electromagnetic spectrum, and the electromagnetic spectrum, all that is to say that it's really every kind of electromagnetic field that we can imagine. So when I say electromagnetic field, I mean a force which is out. This is the easiest way to think about it. So there are natural and non-natural, and it's all on this spectrum. That's just how we understand it. It's on a spectrum of frequencies. And when we talk about EMS, we're talking about frequency and wavelength. So I'm just giving you a very, very quick overview. I don't want to get bogged down in the detail, but the controversy is what we're saying. The problem, if you will, is that our governments are saying, well, there's a line, okay, that on this spectrum, and everything to the right of this line is dangerous, and that's the ionizing radiation, which is the things like the medical X-rays and the radioactive sources and the gamma rays and so on. So all that is, and everybody's agreed on that is dangerous, and that, but then everything to the other side of this line all of a sudden is not dangerous. And we're talking about this notably radio frequency, this microwave radiation, these electric fields and magnetic fields, when we're talking about these different man-made. And I can see somebody's going through the slides here, so that's great. So you're pointing out exactly to what I'm talking about here, which is, I mean, just from a common sense point of view, like imagine, that we could have a line, and everything to one side of this line is dangerous, and everything to the other side is safe. that really, does that make sense to you? You know, nature just does not work like that. It just does not work like that. So that is a controversy in a nutshell. So, and what this controversy means, so what you need to understand is, so even though you cannot feel these exposures, that your cells can, and your cells are in distress. And this is what I want you to understand, is that these EMFs are a silent killer. You know, this is what the research is suggesting, and there is a lot of research on this now, independent studies. That's what I'm talking about. So, you know, what causes cancer? So, you know, there's this commonly held belief that cancer is a result of genetic damage. But there is, you know, less than 5% of all cancers have this genetic link. So, beg your pardon. So there is this alternative theory, and one that I adhere to, is that cancer is more of a disease process. Yeah, it's a process that develops over many years, driven by different types of toxicity, and the different types of toxicity. So we can put them in two categories: internal stressors, things like thoughts, emotions, and trauma, and external stressors, which is a whole long list of things like cosmetics, hair dyes, deodorants, chemotherapies, etc. And as you'll see down at the bottom of that list, not that it is particularly at the bottom, okay, it's not in any particular order, is EMFs. And in any case, you know, it's kind of, it's one which even the alternative medical community, you know, the non-mainstream community, has very little knowledge over. It's not really talked about, and yet it is there. It's clearly there. It is an external stressor. So what's the difference? What's the evidence? I beg your pardon. What is the evidence to, you know, that I can present to you? So there's these basically 4 lines of evidence, which I'm going to share with you today. And firstly, that these wireless exposures dysregulate these voltage gated calcium channels. So this is based on the work of Dr. Martin Paul, Professor Emeritus at Washington State University, who's done some brilliant work on this. So he's not that he's discovered that there are these voltage gated calcium channels. That's been known for a long time. It's that these wireless exposures, you know, from, be it from cell towers, cell phones, smart devices, smart meters, Bluetooth, that these exposures dysregulate these channels, these voltage gated calcium channels. And we've got somebody's with their mic open, with a child that is not happy there. And so these voltage gated calcium channels are and our cells. So these voltage gated calcium channels are on the cell membranes. So, you know, we've got these trillions and trillions of cells in our body, and this they're like doorways, and the doorways should be opening and closing and regulating the calcium in and out of the cells. And when we're exposed to wireless, then this it's like the door's going crazy, okay? And this creates these carbonyl free radicals. I'm sure you've heard about free radicals. And this free radical production damages your DNA cell membranes, your proteins, your stem cells, disrupts cell division, mitosis, and also damages your mitochondria, yeah, which are the little energy factories in your cell, super important for health. So this is peer-reviewed research, okay, and this has been really very well accepted by the scientific community, this work of Dr. Martin Paul. And so yeah, so the so just to finish on that, so what we're actually finding, what this shows, this work by Dr. Martin Paul, is that the upshot of this wireless exposures is the result of all of these wireless exposures. You know, everything that we're using, all this wireless that we're surrounded by, is biological damage, which is the same as the biological damage which is caused by the ionizing radiation. Yes, Remember, I was talking about the ionizing rays, so the ionizing radiation, you know, the gamma rays and so on and so forth, and you know, the X-rays and all. So that is the result. Is we've got this. It's causing the result is the same. The amounts to the same, which is super important. So the second line of evidence is with regard to your brain. Okay, so most research on this question is on RF radiation, radio frequency microwave radiation. Okay, so that's what we're talking about really here in this section. We're talking about, you know, which is wireless. So, you know, it's wireless, it's smart, yeah, it's all, but really what we're actually talking about is radio frequency microwave radiation. So your brain's about 75% water, yeah, it's very fragile. Your skull protects your brain from, you know, bangs and knocks and so on, but also there is your blood-brain barrier, which is another form of protection. And the thing to understand is that this blood-brain barrier protects the toxins from getting into your brain, and it allows your brain to get the essential nutrients it needs. And so what we know is that cell phone radiation type exposures can damage this blood-brain barrier. And this we have known since literally the 1970s, following the work of Dr. Alan Frey. And this damage came from very short-term exposures, and this which suggests that the abnormal changes begin almost immediately. So this blood-brain barrier is vital in protecting your brain from toxins, and this EMF damage to the blood-brain barrier is confirmed by a number of studies. And what this is doing, this breakdown of the blood-brain barrier, well, it's opening the door to cancer, to damage cells, and not just cancer, but lots of different diseases. And there are over 20 studies now just on this effect, and again, peer-reviewed research. So this is really a very important line of evidence. And then thirdly, it's how EMFs impact your DNA, yes, impact your genes. And so I just want to talk about the work of Dr. George Carlo in the 1990s, who headed the wireless technology research program. It's a big program, $28 million, 7 years of research, and it was funded by the cell phone industry. And the cell phone industry, what they wanted was to prove once and for all that cell phones are safe. And unfortunately, that's not quite how it worked. And what Dr. Carlo's team found was that, so he took human cells and he exposed them to this radio frequency microwave radiation, and he found that this caused DNA damage. And so caused DNA damage, genetic damage. And, you know, as you probably know, appreciate, the DNA is like the blueprint, which is created. So if we're messing up the blueprint, then this is obviously very concerning. And it was causing this DNA damage at levels of just 1 watt per kilo. And what you need to understand is from the current standards, the specific absorption rate, which is what all cell phones around the world need to comply with to be sold. Well, the specific absorption rate in the US, for instance, is 1.6 watts per kilo. And so we have you know, given that we have this DNA damage at just 1 watt per kilo, you know, these standards clearly do not protect us, and we've got this creation of these micronuclei through this exposure to radio frequency microwave radiation. And the conclusion of this study, just to be clear here, is that Dr. Carlo said, the big picture is disturbingly clear. There is a definite risk that the radiation plume that emanates from a cell phone antenna can cause cancer and other health problems. So pretty clear. And then the fourth line of evidence, which I want to share with you, is this whole question of melatonin. So melatonin, you probably know, is what is secreted by your pineal gland at night. It's a hormone. It helps to regulate your sleep, and is really super important for health for a whole load of reasons. It's considered by many experts to be the master hormone, so the most important hormone, and studies show it has a role in bolstering your immune system. It's a role in anti-aging, and also a role in fighting cancer. So it's important to understand that this melatonin is a potent free radical scavenger, and multiple studies stretching back over 2 decades show that EMF exposures at night impede melatonin production. And the danger here is that by nullifying the cancer fighting effects of melatonin, that these cancer cells become deeply rooted. And then we've got these really big studies, which I just want to share with you very briefly. So firstly, the Interphone study, 2010, which was a study carried out over 13 different countries over a 10-year period. And it found that with 10 years of moderate cell phone use, greater than, that's to say, greater than 1,640 hours, there is a statistically significant increase in ipsilateral gliomas. So I'll just translate that. So what the Interphone was saying was that, so if you work out 1,640 hours over 10 years, that equates to 30 minutes a day. And this actual statistic was 40%, a 40% increase. And ipsilateral, all that means is it's like the same side of the head. So we're talking, and gliomas is a particularly lethal form of tumor. And using your cell phone, this can be translated or interpreted as using your cell phone for more than 30 minutes a day increases your chance of having a brain tumor by 40%. Okay, so that's one of the biggest studies. A UK study on 790,000 middle-aged women. So it was on women who use their cell phones for 10 or more years. It found were 2.5 times more likely to develop an acoustic neuroma. So that's a tumor on the auditory nerve, and that their risk increased with the number of years they used their cell phone. Okay, and I've put the references, the references down at the bottom here on some of these slides, so you can actually go and look at these studies yourself, and I encourage you to do that, by the way. Don't just take my word for it on this. The science is there. And then a few more studies. So a Mayo Clinic, the prestigious Mayo Clinic study, found that long-term use of cell phones doubles the risk of brain tumors on the same side of the head where the phone is held. Yeah, these ipsilateral tumors again. The NTP study, the National Toxicology Program study, published in 2016. So that's a big $30 million federal study financed by US taxpayers, found evidence of increased risk of glioma. Yeah, these malignant tumors of the brain. That was in the first publication in 2016. And then there was an update in 2018, which found that clear evidence of increased cancer risk in male rats for heart schwannomas. And so the whole NTP study was actually replicated by the Ramazzini Institute in Italy, because it was like, let's just be sure, yeah, that we've not got this wrong, guys. And so, we'll just run everything through by with another team, and just to make sure an independent separate study to make sure that what we found with the $30 million NTP study, that we've not made a mistake. And what they found was exactly the same. It supported very strongly what the NTP study had found. And I just sharing a resource there, the Bioinitiative report. So go to bioinitiative.org, which is a great place. If you like reading studies, then that's the place to go for the studies on EMFs. That's one of the many really great resources on EMFs. And also, we can't talk about EMFs and cancer without talking about the World Health Organization's ruling of 2011, which classified radio frequency radiation of the type emitted by cell phones as a group 2B possible human carcinogen, putting it in the same category as lead and DDT. Okay, so that was in 2011, and that is widely regarded by independent experts as being totally outdated now, that classification. And experts are saying it should clearly, this radio frequency microwave exposures, these cell phone type exposures, these wireless exposures, which we're being exposed to now increasingly with what's happening with 5G and the satellites in space, over 100,000 satellites in space, and the small cell antennas every third or fourth house in urban and semi-urban areas, then the World Health Organization should be classifying this as a group 1 carcinogen. Okay, no argument about that. So yeah, so that's with regard to, so everything I've talked about till now is all wireless. Okay, and I want to talk about another category, this wired, and the EMFs on wiring, because it tends to be forgotten. And there's 3 types of electromagnetic fields here: the electric fields, magnetic fields, and dirty electricity. And it is a little bit, for some people, or if you're hearing about this for the first time, then it's not easy to get your head around this whole EMF concept, because we can't see them, we can't feel them, we can't touch them, or most people can't in any case. And yet very clearly they are there. So we have these different categories, and it's all, when we're talking about EMFs, we're always talking about them in terms of frequency and wavelength. And for instance, the 5G is going into these very high frequencies now, and here we're talking about lower frequencies. So on this spectrum, which I mentioned at the beginning, we're right kind of down at the bottom. And for instance, your electrical system, the electrical system in the US is at 60 hertz. So those electric fields and magnetic fields would be around those frequencies. But then we've got this other phenomena called dirty electricity, which is a little bit higher. I'll get onto that in a second. But so what's important to understand is that these wired EMFs also cause biological effects, just like the wireless. So these wired EMFs, unfortunately, don't stay on the wire. That's the problem. So you've got electrical wire. You see in the little picture there, we've got this. That's what it does. It's like, because most homes do not have shielded wiring. So some workplaces do, but most homes do not have shielded wiring. So when we've got electricity on a wire, then we have an electromagnetic field which is emanating from this wire. And this electromagnetic field, studies are telling us, causes cellular damage, DNA breaks, creation of free radicals again, obviously oxidative stress. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but that's all goes with the whole free radical thing, and also other synergistic effects. So it's like the EMFs with everything else, which is a very important point. Just want to stress. So I'm talking about EMFs today, we talked about all the different toxins at the beginning, the internal and the external, but understand that it's the interaction of the EMFs, the electromagnetic field, with all of these toxins. That's the problem. It's not just the EMFs on their own. And that is the particular nature of these EMFs, is that they're everywhere and that they have this ability to interact with all these other toxins from the food we're eating, from the soaps and the shampoos and so on that you're putting on your skin, from the air we're breathing, from all these, from the glyphosate in the soils, you know, from all these different sources. And this is the problem, which we have few studies on, but the studies we do have are very concerning. And it's this synergistic nature of EMFs, where we've got EMFs plus the other toxin or plus the other toxins altogether, and it's not 2 + 2 + 2 = 6. It's 2 + 2 + 2 = 60 or 600 or 6,000. It's this exponential effect of these exposures. And so we have science on this, notably, you know, going back to the 1970s. I know it's unbelievable, you know, that people don't know about this, but, you know, on electrical wiring, and what the 1979 study showed here was that children living near ordinary power lines had 3 times the likelihood of developing cancer. And, you know, just exposure of just 2 to 3 milligauss. And milligauss is how we measure magnetic fields, which is very low. Okay, just to give you an example, you know, it's levels of 10, 20, or 30 or more milligauss, 50 milligauss are commonly found in homes by EMF consultants, building biologists, and so on. So, you know, 2 to 3 milligauss is not exceptional. Okay, and yet with 2 to 3 milligauss, we have an increased risk of cancer, and 2/3 of homes have these elevated magnetic fields, and over 50% is actually due to wiring issues, which is by the by, and which is a whole nother topic. But unfortunately, when your wiring is done, then it can be the wiring can satisfy the electrical requirements, the code, and yet it can still cause a magnetic field, unfortunately. So if it respects code, that is already a really good point, and then that kind of minimizes things, but we can still have high magnetic fields. So let's talk about this thing, dirty electricity, and that is a bit of a colloquialism, but we're talking about intermediary frequencies. We're talking about frequencies between the power frequencies, the 60 hertz wherever you live, or the 50 hertz if you live in Europe, between those power frequencies which are on your electrical wiring, and the radio frequencies, the wireless and so on, which we've been talking about. So it's these in-betweeny frequencies, and this is what, if you look on the little diagram here, you can see we've clean electricity, then it's this nice clean sine wave, and that's how it should look, and that's how it used to look. And then what happened was we started introducing devices to save energy. Actually, that's where it all started, this whole thing. And by saving energy, what we're often doing is chopping the current, and you know, it can be chopping the current thousands of times a second, and that introduces these harmonics and transients onto the electrical supply. And many modern devices have like things like switch mode power supplies have these little transformer looking kind of units, which are causing this dirty electricity. So it's frequencies in the kilohertz range. And what we know from the research, which is mainly Russian research, is that this goes internal. These frequencies go internal on certain frequencies on the kilohertz range, and that's the problem with this dirty electricity. And one bit of research I can share with you is the La Quinta middle school case in California in 2013. The teachers were complaining that cancer rates amongst their colleagues were high, and there were actually threefold risk of cancer in teachers at La Quinta compared to California residents as a whole. And And so, you know, why? Well, what they found out, and there was a team that went in there with Dr. Sam Milham and Dave Stetzer and other people. And in what they found was that in 1/4 of the classrooms, the dirty electricity readings were so high, they overloaded the meter. I think the meter was like going to 2000 or something like that. It was so high, it was overloading the meter. And the readings that we should be looking at are around 50 or below. That's what the manufacturers recommend. So at the time of the study, which was at the time of the study, there were 11 reported cancer cases. Okay, I'm not sure that figure is right, actually, 2018. But at the time of the study, which I believe was 2013, there were 11 reported cancer cases. And the 2018 update, which I have, was that 49 of those students subsequently got cancer. 12 died, 6 teachers and staff and 6 students in their early 20s have now died. And the expected thyroid cancer at the school is 13 times higher, and 10 times the expected melanoma rate, and 9 times the expected uterine cancer. So, and there are other cases of correlation, certainly, between these exposures, like cancer clusters with these high dirty electricity exposures, which is very easy to measure. And I've got a meter I can show you if you're interested, if people have questions about that. Very easy to measure. It's just plug and play kind of meter, and you look at it and it gives you a reading, and it tells you, you know, what that, you just get a number, and it, as I say, it should be below 50. So what we, you know, what we're saying here is that a large number of peer-reviewed studies clearly document an association between cancer and EMFs. And again, a bioinitiative report is a really good place to go. If you just want to look at the dry studies, go to electricsense.com if you're wanting to get some kind of understanding and interpretation. And that's what I've been doing since over 10 years now online. And so, yeah, let's talk about solutions. So, you know, that's a very, very quick overview. Obviously, I've got limited time here, and I don't want to get too bogged down with the science, but I've, you know, touched the main points there. And so I want to share some solutions, you know, things you can do. And obviously I'll be taking your questions afterwards. And if you've got more questions on the science, then I would be happy to answer those. But in terms of solutions, again, we're back to the you know, I like to think about this in terms of the wireless and the wired. And first we're going to look at the wireless. So, you know, cell phone, we can't talk about wireless without talking about cell phones, because everybody and the dog's got a cell phone these days. So here's the thing, okay? My number one recommendation is to stop using a cell phone. If you can, stop using a cell phone and use other devices to communicate. I do not own a cell phone, and my wife has a cell phone. And yeah, I know that, you know, if you travel and things, a cell phone's really important. But we're in a world where we've got this reliance on cell phones. And if we can wean ourselves off that reliance, that is the way to go. And I know that's brutal, but I'm putting that out there right at the beginning. That's sort of an aim, really, as I see it, because we're feeding the beast. While we're paying money, you know, a lot of money to the cell phone companies, then we're feeding the beast of this thing which we call wireless. So, you know, why is it important to talk about cell phone in this conversation today in terms of solutions? You know, because the cell phone is, for most people, the worst offender. And it's the thing you have to look at because of, you know, how people are using it, putting it very close to their brain. It's a very, if you want fast results, then this is the way to get fast results, is to get really rigorous in terms of how you're using your cell phone. And it is drastic, I know. So less drastic are some tips, which I'm going to share with you, things you can do to use your cell phone more safely. And so just a few, very quick things here, free and easy things. So limit the calls, limit those calls to only those which are absolutely necessary. Prefer to text, not talk. No, that's not to say that texting all day long is perfectly safe. That that has its health implications also. Just go to my website and you can see there's a lot of thousands of comments on there from people who have symptoms from using cell phones and other EMF devices, and certainly texting is very clearly in there. It is a problem, and I don't believe there's any actual studies on this, but the anecdotal evidence is very clear. Avoid using your phone next to your ear. Use speakerphone as a preference if you can. So that's free and easy to do. And there's something really important to retain here with EMFs whenever we're talking about EMFs, and it's the following: distance is your friend. Okay, and what that means is the more distance you can put between the device, whatever it is, the cell phone, okay, this is a glasses case, it's not a cell phone, whatever, the greater the distance you can put between the device and yourself, the better. And the reason is the reason that this is important is because most EMFs propagate in an exponential manner. That's to say, quite simply, that gaining just a few millimeters can sometimes reduce your exposure by thousands of times. So distance really is not just your friend, it's like your best friend. It's very, very important, okay, to gain distance between the device and yourself. So those are free and easy tips, and more free and easy tips: go easy on the apps, avoid streaming, particularly movies and videos, because that really makes your phone work hard, increases your exposure. Delay putting it to your ear when you're calling, because it's that initial connection, when you're making that initial connection, where the exposure is the greatest. And avoid carrying your cell phone directly on your body when it's switched on, yeah? Because we've got this magnetic field problem also at close proximity, which can be in the order of 30 to 40 milligauss. That doesn't probably mean much to you, but it's very significant. Okay, let's just put it like that. And so some more free and easy tips. Get wise about the bars. You want to be using your cell phone when you've got maximum bars. Maximum bars means strong signal. Okay, just like 1 bar means your phone is having to work extremely hard to maintain the connection between the cell tower or whatever it is. It's the Wi-Fi or the Bluetooth device or whatever wireless connection it is operating on. Then you always want to have the maximum bars. Avoid carrying your cell phone directly on your body, as I said before, to avoid this radio frequency and magnetic fields. Delay putting it to your ear. Avoid using your phone in a moving vehicle, and never sleep with a phone switched on at night. So okay, I'm just checking the time here just to check, see how we're doing, but I think we're doing okay. So never sleep with the cell phone switched on at night beside your bed. You don't want anything wireless, in fact, anything electrical in your bedroom. Okay, and we'll get to that in a little while, and you'll be able to ask questions on this for more clarity on this whole subject. Some more free and easy tips, because I know people like free and easy. Make airplane mode your best friend. So putting it on airplane mode, see, your cell phone's got these 3 kinds of wireless functionality: the cellular, which will be the 3G, the 4G, the 5G, whatever, the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi, and possibly also the GPS, and possibly also like a separate data and streaming functionality. Just depends on the phones. You want it on airplane mode, and this will turn, to turn off all radiation emissions, and that's what you need to be assured of is that it actually does that. The only actual way you can know if it's doing that is to test with an EMF meter, and I've got one here which I can show you very quickly. There we go. Hope you can see that. So that is a Cornet ED88T Plus meter, which is a really great meter for measuring. And that's the, I'm always encouraging people to actually use a meter to, don't trust what I say, don't trust what anybody says. Get a meter, test it for yourself. That way you're sure. Don't trust your phone either. So that's with regard to airplane mode. So let's talk about Wi-Fi. So let's be clear why it's important to talk about Wi-Fi. Well, firstly, because of the nature and complexity of the signal. So it uses this radio frequency microwave radiation, which thousands of studies are showing has these adverse effects, these various different adverse effects on our health. What I was talking about before, the effects on the DNA, on the enzymes, on the stem cells, on all this really impacting us at a cellular level and at an energetic level. That's what this radio frequency microwave radiation is doing. And so most Wi-Fi networks work with a carrier signal of 2.4 gigahertz, and then this is modulated, which just means like turning off this signal in a certain rhythm, and this is how the data is transmitted. Yes, these whatever that is, sounds, words, images, etc., or pulsed, and it's this pulsing that is believed to be particularly dangerous. And that's a bit of a simplification, all of that, but I'm just saying it's the nature and complexity. That's the best, easiest way of resuming this. And again, I'm not a scientist here, folks, so I'm sharing with you my research, and I have been researching this a long time, and I've spoken to a lot of experts. I have a podcast, a bi-monthly podcast, which I've been running since 2014. I've written a book on it, as you've seen, and so it's for you to make your form your own opinion on this. So that's the first thing, the nature and complexity of the signal. Wi-Fi is particularly harmful. The second thing is, many of us are exposed to it 24/7, 365 days a year. There's no escaping it. And that is a problem. And it's this kind of jarring our cells, jarring our energy systems. And there's nothing like this in nature. There's nothing like these frequencies in nature, these pulse modulated radio frequency microwave exposures. There is nothing, polarized exposures. There's nothing like this in nature. So be wary of Wi-Fi. So how to make your Wi-Fi safer? Well, number one, move your router, and I say router because I'm English. So move your modem router as far away as possible from the rooms where you spend any time. That's the first thing. You don't want that modem router in your bedroom. You don't want it in your office. You don't want to be sat next to it. You don't want to spend any time next to that modem router. You want it as far away as possible, but still be able to get the signal. Second thing is switch off your Wi-Fi at night. Why the heck would you have the Wi-Fi on at night? Yeah, you can sleep and surf the internet at the same time. Yeah. So no, you do not need the Wi-Fi at night, and you can use an app to switch it off, something like the Linksys app. And sorry, so what I didn't say was you can also use a mechanical timer, which costs about $10 online, and that is my recommended way of deactivating, switching off. Yeah, don't rely on the modem router settings to do this for you. You want to actually electrically disconnect it. That way you're sure it's off. And again, the best way to be absolutely sure is with an EMF meter, is to get the readings, have one of those, so you can be sure. But my number one recommendation is actually to do away with the Wi-Fi, and is to use Ethernet cable, to hardwire. And this does mean having wires. Yes, I know. But it's way faster, it's safer, and in terms of, you know, health effects, honestly, it's a no-brainer. It really is, and that's what counts. So yeah, installing wires, and you can do this. You can, you know, just run the wires initially along the corridor or whatever, or around the room, and then, you know, further down the line, you can get an electrician to, you know, install this in a more proper manner. And there are other workarounds to this using existing wiring, which can also be explored. So that's with regard to the wireless. And now I want to talk in terms of, you know, about solutions a little bit for the wired. And for the wired, so again, we're back to this forgotten stroke less talked about aspect of EMFs, these wide exposures. And so there's three types. There's the electric fields, the magnetic fields, and the dirty electricity. And as you can see, this is a problem in all rooms which have electricity. So which is every room of your home, you know, I'm pretty sure. And so here's a 7-day challenge. What I propose you do is you go to your breaker panel, which looks something like that, maybe not quite as high tech as that, and switch off the bedroom circuit. Normally that will be noted, you know, what the bedroom circuit is. If it's not, you can work it out via a process of deduction, switching off and then going to the bedroom and seeing if you've still got electricity. Do this for 7 days, okay? And what this will do, it will eliminate electric fields, magnetic fields, significantly reduce your dirty electricity when you're sleeping, which is super important, because, you know, it's when you sleep that your body rejuvenates, regenerates. You've got the detox going on, and just a whole load of cellular activity, which enables your body to heal. And if you've been zapped, you know, 24/7, I remember what I was saying about the studies on the melatonin and how melatonin production is impacted, is reduced, is through these different EMF exposures. Just that alone, you know, we know the cancer protective properties of melatonin. Just that alone, this makes it a no-brainer. So here's, you know, just to be clear, I am not saying that this is going to guarantee solve your problem, improve things for you, because sometimes you can get some rather weird, wonderful imbalances in electrical system, which means that by switching off the bedroom circuit, you actually get a higher electromagnetic field, you know, from the other circuits, and in which case you would need to switch off the other circuits. So this is very much a trial and error and a temporary solution. So I recommend you do it for 7 days, and then if it does work, then look towards installing a more long-term solution, automating it, which is what I have, for instance. It just does it itself, and then we've got kind of remote controlled automations, so that you can actually have your cake and eat it, in terms of you're not being exposed to these EMFs when you're sleeping, but when you sleep, switch the light on, the electricity is there. Okay, that is possible, technically possible, and it's not that expensive. And frankly, this is where you get the most bang for your buck in terms of EMF protection, is what you can do in the bedroom. It's where you must focus. So try that, and it's very much a suck it and see. If you do feel better, then all well and good. Then, and if you don't, then maybe explore, you know, and maybe invest in an EMF meter and figure out why you don't feel good. Maybe get the electrician in. Maybe he will know something about EMFs. Not all electricians do. In fact, many don't know about EMFs. But if you get a sympathetic electrician, then that's a conversation you can have with regard to, you know, explaining what's happening with your meter, and him going around, and he'll be understanding with his tools what's happening, and there's a problem, possibly a wiring error, which is causing this. But certainly, and you know, this is very powerful. This reducing significant, because we can never truly eliminate, but we can significantly reduce our exposures in the bedroom, is hugely powerful. in terms of your health. So yeah, so that's what I recommend, and that's really my presentation, as much as I got to share here. And I know I've gone through this very quickly, and so perhaps you have questions which you would like to ask me following what I've presented here, and I'm very happy to take questions, any questions that you have. So I'm going to, let me see. So Ben, I'll wait for Ben to tell, or somebody's going to give me a question. Maybe, I don't know how this works exactly. I can see that we've got some questions maybe in the chat. I can take questions on the chat. Is that okay?
Actually, so Lloyd, thank you so much for everything and all of your time and your expertise. We appreciate that. It was amazing. What we're going to do, everyone, we know there's some questions in the chat. We need to ask everyone to actually use your Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen. There's a raise hand button, and if you'll go ahead and click that, go ahead and raise your hands. And once I see raised hands in my my participants box, I'll be able to select each of you one by one and go from there. So in the meantime, also, once you do raise your hand, I'm going to, and I'm just double checking my raised hands now. Once I do invite you, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and then you can go ahead and ask Lloyd that question. And so let's see now. I am scrolling down. Here's a raised hand.
Just bear with me 1 second, please.
You bet, Lloyd. So we're just going to give Lloyd a second and bear with us for a moment. In the meantime, thank you again for joining us. This is the 8th annual Real Truth About Health conference, and we are very, very grateful that you're all here with us. Okay, great. Lloyd, thank you so much. So I'm going to start. We have, let's see now, I have Trevor Jenkins. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and unmute yourself, Trevor. And when you're ready, go ahead. And if you would, Trevor, keep your question brief and direct for Lloyd, and go right ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Lloyd, for your awesome, excellent presentation. My question is, what are your thoughts on the things that we can stick on our phone to monitor the EMF or radiation, or actually makes it go away? You're supposed to stick it on the back of your phone.
Okay, very good question. Excellent question. Thank you, Trevor. So understand this. When I became sick, so as I said at the beginning of my presentation, the reason I started talking about this online is because I became sick with EMF. I was very sick for a long time. And how did I try and become unsick? You know, how did I try and resolve it? Well, I went to my doctors because my wife told me to. And the medical community couldn't help me at all. And so what I started to do was buy pretty much everything I could find to make this problem go away. You know, I just wanted it to go away. I didn't want to learn about EMFs and, you know, do a load of research. And it was very, very scary, to be honest, this whole thing, and confusing. And, you know, my background is a CPA, yeah, like a chartered accountant in the UK. So this is not my field at all. So I had to learn all of this stuff. And so I just bought everything I could, the chips, the diodes, the harmonizers, and all this on the phone, and, you know, the plug-in things on the wall. And I spent a fortune on all of these things. And some of them seemed to work for a time. And then, you know, I was kind of back to step one. And so what I've learned through all of this is, you know, and what I'm sharing is what works. And what I know works is this measurable mitigation. And I have a protocol for this, which I didn't share during the presentation, but I'll just share it very quickly now. I call it the OM. And the OM is U for understand, M for measure, and M for mitigate. Okay, so first thing is understand. So you're talking about a cell phone. So we're talking about radio frequency radiation. Therefore, what we need to do is to measure. You can measure it with, so in this case, wouldn't really make a lot of sense to measure, but I'm just giving you the process, if you want. So you would measure and to mitigate. So how can you mitigate? Well, the way to mitigate is actually what I shared in the presentation. That works. Those mitigation strategies work. And what I can say is there are a number of devices out there and some of them have science to support that they do certain things. But what I will say is that EMFs impact us in so many different ways, okay? And some of the ways that I shared here at a cellular level, at this very fundamental level. And I know of no device that has done the studies, that have done the research to prove that their device protects you from these EMF exposures at all these different ways, all these different ways that the EMFs impact us. And for that reason, for the reason that, firstly, that was my experience, I couldn't do it. Secondly, because there is a way of dealing with this, a more scientific, measurable mitigation way, which is, the distance is your friend and what I explained previously. And thirdly, is because we just don't have the research on these devices to be, sure that this is that this does what it says. So what I would say, just to finish that off, is that by all means use these devices as an adjunct to what you're doing, this measurable mitigation, what you're doing. So you're taking the steps. You're applying the safe cell phone protocol, which I shared with you, those different ways, airplane mode and so on, distance is your friend and so on. And also, add this, whatever it is, this device in, this sticker, whatever it is, add that in, but don't be reliant on that. That's my answer to that one. So I hope that helps.
Lloyd, thank you so much for that. And we have another question coming in now from Bev DiCarlo. Bev, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And when you're ready, Lloyd is ready for your question. Stay with us. I think, Bev, we just need you to unmute when you get a chance. Bev DiCarlo, there we go.
All right. Thank you so much. I have hearing aids that are rechargeable overnight, and they are automatically linked to my iPhone. What do you think about having that against your head, 18, 20 hours a day?
So actually, my wife has a similar problem, and there's always a trade-off here. So to use the device and expose yourself to this radio frequency, microwave radiation, which, thousands of studies show that there are adverse health effects, and it's linked to, all these diseases, including cancer. Or do you not hear so good, or is there an alternative? So that's the trade-off, that's the choice. These exposures from these devices, as I understand it, are low level. And so I said my wife has got one of these devices, but I'd not been able to measure these frequencies because all these different meters, they measure a specific frequency range, and I wasn't actually able to measure that frequency that that her device is using. So it's very much a personal choice. So know the facts, know the dangers, and they are low level. These the Bluetooth is low level, and if really there is no, your choice is, well, heck, I really need this to be able to function. I need these hearing aids. Then focus your attention and energy on mitigating elsewhere, because there's lots of ways in mitigating in your home and in your life as fully as possible, and notably in your bedroom. And I alluded to that during my presentation, is to create this sleep sanctuary, this low EMF sleep sanctuary, and focus on that, so that if you do that, then these your body will be more resilient, will be better able to deal with these EMF exposures from your hearing aid.
Lloyd, thank you for that. And Bev, thanks very much for your question. Before we get on to our next audience member with a question, I just want to mention there were a few questions in the chat box. We're going to ask anyone who has a question to please actually raise their hand and come on and ask your question. We won't be able to take questions directly from the chat box. So if you can, we still have a few more minutes. I've got another question from Donna Murphy up next. So go ahead and raise your hand and we'll get to those as well. In the meantime, Donna Murphy, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and unmute yourself. And when you can, we'll have you ask you to keep your question brief and to the point. And Donna, we're just waiting for you to unmute if you can. Let's see if I can do that for you. Donna, are you able to unmute for us? Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Donna, if you can figure out how to unmute for the next time, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Michael Lang. You're up next with a raised hand. Michael, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute yourself, please. And oh, looks like you started to. If you could just hit it one more time. Michael Lang, if you can click unmute one more time, and we'll have you come in with a question. So Michael Lang, once again, if you can unmute yourself, we can ask Lloyd your question. It looks like you're clicking and it's going in and out of mute. Not quite sure what's happening there.
So I'll just show you while we're waiting here.
Thank you.
Oh, here we go.
Ah, okay. So that sounds like Donna Murphy. Is that you, Donna?
That is Donna Murphy. Hi.
Great, Donna. Thank you. Thanks. That's great. So Michael Lang, if you're listening, we'll get back to you and have you unmute when Donna is done. Donna, thanks for joining us. If you can ask a relatively brief and direct question for Lloyd. Thank you.
Okay. I need a new car, new van, and the Toyota Sienna has outstanding mileage on it, like 36 miles per gallon or some really large number. And I'm concerned. I have uterine cancer. My husband has prostate cancer. And I'm concerned about us sitting on the battery. The nickel battery is under the driver's seat. It's the only thing stopping me from just making the deal on this car. Is sitting on a battery. There's no radio waves, but it is a battery. Is that going to be dangerous for my health?
Okay, thank you, Donna. So battery will be emitting magnetic fields, certainly, electric fields probably. So these will be direct current. So what's in a home is alternating current, back and forth, and cars are actually running on direct current, like the earth runs on direct current and we run on direct current. But that's not to say it's good, unfortunately. So I can't say, we always want to know what our exposures are, and we're always back, and that's why I'm always back to the OM. So we're understanding, so I've just given you the understanding of what the nature of that exposure. So we're talking about magnetic fields, essentially, perhaps electric fields. And then the second thing we need to do is to measure. That's what I recommend, is to get yourself a meter if you can, or borrow or beg from somebody a meter to get readings. And this meter, by the way, so this is a tri-film meter. It's a bit different to the one I was showing you before, but it's very similar. This actually is designed to measure AC fields. So you won't get an exact reading, but you can measure like your existing car and the new car and compare, something like that, because to get a meter just to measure the car would be quite onerous, quite expensive, and you would only be able to use it for that. Whereas if you had this meter, you can use it for so many things. It measures lots of things. So that's what ideally I would be doing, Donna. And you can actually shield these exposures if you have to. Shielding is not very easy in a car. That's the thing. And before you shield, you would need to get the readings. So we're always back to getting the readings, because otherwise, you know, we're just running blind. We've got no, you know, we're clueless, and we're just throwing money out the window, basically, if we're, you know, shielding stuff without really understanding the why and the wherefore. So that's what I recommend, is to try and get some kind of readings with this. And it's not optimum, to be honest, to be sat over those magnetic fields. So whatever, you know, whether you're healthy or not healthy, or you've got, you know, existing health condition or whatever, but whatever you're, you know, where you are, young, old, you do not want to be sitting over a battery. Okay, so that's my reply to that one.
Lloyd, thank you very much. We have another question now from, looks like Linda Christensen.
Yeah.
That right. Great. Thank you for unmuting, Linda. Appreciate that. And again, if you would keep your question pretty direct and brief for Lloyd. Go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. Just a quick question. I don't use a cell phone either, but I'm wondering if you have any particular strategies for dealing with all the people around you who keep insisting that you need a cell phone, and how you cope with that. It just drives me nuts. Thank you.
Okay, very good question, Linda. Sorry, laughing, that makes me laugh, that one. I don't think I've been asked a similar question to that before, but well, you know, it's kind of like the whole COVID thing, which is going on at the moment. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying here, but there's a great polarization which is happening. The people that, you know, are into the masks and the vaccines and so on, and believe in all of that, and then the people that are taking a different view, and, you know, looking at the immune system in the body and looking at the science. And so it is kind of difficult when it's a health question. So how I deal with it, I actually refrain from talking about EMFs, apart from when I'm sat in front of this computer, pretty much, because otherwise, so if people ask me, I reply. Otherwise, I feel as though, you know, I'm some sort of preacher. You know, I'm trying to, you know, convince people, tell something to people that they don't want to hear, because most people have this love affair with their cell phone, and they, you know, this information I've shared here today, they find it deeply offensive and troubling, and they just don't want to hear it. So that's my advice, is unless it's, and even if it is, you know, apart from if it's your children, then it's your duty to do what's necessary. And otherwise, it's really, you know, just don't take that on. If people ask you, then share it. Otherwise, you know, just don't go there, because it's too it's confrontation. So, you know, avoid the confrontation. That's what I do.
Thank you.
Lloyd, thank you so much. Linda, thanks for your question as well. And Michael Lang, if we can get back to you and have you unmute, I'm going to send you an ask to unmute, and let's see if we can get you this time. Michael Lang, yes, we have you, Michael. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, wondering about grounding, especially at night, surrounded by this fog, electromagnetic fog. Is grounding of any use, or during the day, or driving, or so? General question. Yeah,
excellent question. Thank you, Michael. So grounding, yes. So grounding, earthing. So I actually call this earthing. And just to make the distinction between grounding electrical equipment and grounding like you would do on electrical installation in your home. So I call this earthing. And again, this is controversial. There's people that swear by it, and there's other people say it's deadly. And when I say people, I mean, you know, experts. So there are experts both sides of this. So here's my take on this. Grounding or earthing, that's to say direct physical skin contact with the earth. Personally, I recommend, but it's a suck and see again, because there are people that it appears might not have a net gain from earthing, that there might not be a net beneficial effect from this earthing, because there are man-made currents even running through the earth, particularly in North America. And that is the controversy. And of all the different ways to earth, the best way is actually direct physical contact with the earth or with the sea. Yeah, swimming in the sea, that's a really great way to earth, as opposed to earthing indoors, like earthing in your office with a strap or sitting on a pad or whatever, or having a pad on your bed. And it's this direct physical contact with the earth, which is the best way to do it. And again, it's suck it and see, and give yourself time, because it can be like a detox reaction with this. So you might think, oh, well, no, this is not helping me. It's actually making things worse, but it is actually helping you. It's just detoxing. So I hope that. And I'm being brief because I think we're running out of time.
We do have a few more questions. We're doing okay on time. If you're doing okay on time, Lloyd.
Okay, I'm doing okay. Yeah, happy.
Excellent. Thank you. We appreciate that. And so up next, let's see now. I have got Natasha Jelenik. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I hope I am.
Got it. That's good. Yelena.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for this. I just heard about this. I hopped on kind of late. So my question, my question is kind of going back to that question about the man-made. I have an EMF blocking canopy over my bed. And so my partner wanted to use a grounding mat as well. Now I'm just wondering, is there going to be an interference in the two that come together? Because I know it has to go into an outlet, and I don't have anything plugged around in my bed or my bedroom at all.
Okay, thank you. So so what you're talking about, for people don't know, it's typically called an EMF Faraday canopy, named after Michael Faraday, the guy that discovered this concept that we could actually protect ourselves by creating a Faraday cage. And that's what we're trying to do when we're using a Faraday canopy. And this is an effective means to protect yourself from radio frequency, microwave radiation. That's everything wireless, or certain frequencies anyway. These canopies are designed to protect you from certain frequencies. And they're quite expensive, but they do work. But there's the pros and the cons. So to answer your question, and it might sound like a bit of a get out here, but I will be looking at what the manufacturer actually recommends for that particular canopy, because there's some canopies which it's recommended that that's the first thing. Look what the manufacturer recommends, because there are some canopies that are recommended to, that it recommends you to actually have a mat, a shielding mat underneath. And it makes sense because, again, we're looking for a sealed enclosure. So how can we create a sealed enclosure without a grounding, without a mat, without having this mat also? If you're ground level, you've got nobody below you, then no, okay, in principle. But so first thing, looking at what the manufacturer recommendations are. Second thing is back to the meter, okay? Back to what the meter's saying. And in a perfect world, you would be taking readings without the mat and taking readings with the mat and finding out which is the lower, quite simply. And, we're always back to kind of having the meter, having a meter, and I'm not tied to any of these meters particularly, and I keep showing different meters and things, but there's good meters and bad meters, and these meters I've tested and I've reviewed, and they are good value for money. They do what they say. And if you have a meter, then you're able to make these kind of decisions, and lots of EMF decisions will, you'll be able to make once you have an EMF meter. So I hope that's clarified things on that for you.
Thank you.
Lloyd, thank you so much for that. We have a few more questions, and actually somehow Kelly Jackson, I apologize. More people are coming on and you've been bumped down the list. So I'm going to move you back up, and Kelly, I'm going to ask you to unmute Kelly Jackson. And if you would unmute yourself, and we'd love to have your question. Thank you.
Okay, well, I do try to be conscientious, and, I keep outlets in my car, so I don't always have to depend on my phone for GPS. But I was wondering, if we don't have a TV and we just use our computer and we transfer our wireless Wi-Fi to be able to watch one TV show before we go to bed, and we plug our cell phones in another room, is that somewhat safe in this day and age, to do that, just use our wireless Wi-Fi for 1 or 2 shows a day? And because we do try to limit our exposure to electronics.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that's a great question, because So I've shared quite a lot of information here for those of you that have been on since the beginning. And it might sound a little brutal to some of you what I'm suggesting. But I'm not saying, you know, you should be right up there now. It's like, it's something to aim for, this rigorous EMF protection, as I call it. And that's what you need to keep in mind there, Kelly, is that you're trying to mitigate your exposures. It's always it's a trade-off, because we want to live life, enjoy it, and wireless is tremendously convenient. But then when we understand what it does to our bodies, what it does to our minds, then then do we really want that? And well, yeah, actually, I do want to watch, that really great show on Netflix or whatever. So can I have my cake and eat it? Well, kind of, yeah, but not totally. So we're always looking to, and what you've described there, I'm not saying, yeah, you're fine. And nobody can say that, no doctor, no building biologist, no scientist, because there's no black and white with this EMFs. But we're always trying to do what we can to reduce our exposures, and looking, like there's really some really smart things you can do, like you've shared here. Actually, there's really good tips of downloading stuff and then putting it on your TV, and then you are exposed to blue light, which is another form of EMF, by the way, which is also, I've not had time to talk about that, but that impacts us tremendously, particularly blue light at night. There's a lot of research on that. So when you've downloaded your movie, whatever it is, from Netflix, and then you go and you chill out and you watch it in an evening, you're exposing yourself to blue light in an evening, and then we've got a whole load of other problems. And in this day and age, unless you're going to go and live like a caveman, then you are going to be exposed to this EMF toxin and lots of other toxins. So we're trying to minimize this EMF toxin, particularly because the research that I've done and the other people, and I'm just standing on their shoulders of giants really on this whole thing, is showing very clearly that these exposures are causing these very serious adverse biological effects, and that downstream there's this link to diseases. So so great what you're doing. Carry on in that vein. Thank you.
Lloyd, thank you. We have a few more questions. And this next person, please forgive me if I'm butchering your name. I'm going to give it a try. I don't know if it's Baha or Beha or something else, but hopefully you recognize that I'm asking you to unmute now. And if you would go ahead and give us your question as well.
Hello, thank you for your lecture. I want to ask about the safety of earphones and Bluetooth headsets. Are they safe?
So are headsets safe? That's what I understood. iPhones and headsets, I'm not sure exactly.
If I could jump in, I think he asked if Bluetooth headsets are safe.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. So Bluetooth headset. So the thing to understand about Bluetooth is that it is this evil enemy radio frequency, microwave radiation, what I've been talking about since the beginning. And how I keep insisting on like the full, because it's got this word microwave in it. So microwave, what you mean, like microwave oven? Yes, that exactly like that, but only worse, most probably, because of the nature of this signal. So it's these frequencies are complex and getting more complex as time goes by, as this technology evolves. And as I said, we're moving into 5G, which is even more complicated. But Bluetooth is radio frequency microwave radiation, but it is low level by definition, because Bluetooth doesn't go far. So it's not a very powerful signal, but it is still this signal which is complex, which is non-natural, which is polarized, which is modulated, which is pulsed, which is all these horrible things, does these very non-natural things, stresses our bodies, stresses our minds. But it's low level. But that's what the industry is saying. But it's low level. It's okay. It's low level. It's low power. You're fine. But that's not what the science is saying. It's not about the power. So it is low level, but it's not about the power. And the thing is, it's right next to your head. So Bluetooth, if you've got a Bluetooth lawnmower, that's, just off to our head. I know Bluetooth, they're putting Bluetooth on every darn thing. But, a Bluetooth lawnmower, then that's one thing, because you're not putting your head next to the lawnmower. But with a headset, it's designed to go on your head. You know, this is a headset, it's wired. So it's not emitting. So even here, I've got some electrical fields and some magnetic fields, but it's low level. And it's not this bad guy, this radio frequency microwave radiation, which I'm putting right next to my head. So in my book, to be avoided.
Lloyd, thank you very much for that as well. And we've got a couple of more questions. Up next, we have Renee Locher, forgive me for butchering your name, but thank you for unmuting. Appreciate it, Renee. Go ahead.
Hi there, it's Locker. Thank you. I'm just wondering, I know this goes back to the device question, but I'm wondering if you know anything about the Key Shield or the Key Home. It's QI devices, and they're supposed to shield from EMFs. I don't know if you have any experience with those.
Okay, so I do actually.
Oh, great.
So there are many of these devices on the market. And again, so let's just be clear. We do the we understanding what we're dealing with. We measure it. We get ourselves a meter at some point so we can measure it, and we mitigate as well as best we can. And then when we've done all that, then we look at devices like this. And so the Qi or Key, or however you want to call it, the Synergy brand, I have actually explored these, and I've interviewed Paul Barrett-Tiero, who is the CEO of Synergy. And the reason I've interviewed him is because they've got some science behind it. They've actually spent quite a lot of money on the science. And what also makes this technology different is that their studies show that there is a measurable reduction in field strength from introducing these devices into the home. This is, as far as I'm aware, this is the only device which you can actually measure the reduction like that. Because most of them, it's like you buy it and then you believe it and it harmonizes, but you can't actually see it for yourself. And here, well, if you had a laboratory, you would be able to see it for yourself. But I mean, even with a meter, whatever, you wouldn't be able to see that. But their studies show this. They've had studies, spent a lot of money on studies, which are showing this. So when you've done everything else, then why not? Yeah, absolutely, why not? But again, even though, and this is, I mean, I actually spoke to Paul just last week, interviewed him with regard to my upcoming EMFL summit. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that, which I'm doing, but anyway, I've said it now. And he's going to be actually on there, and to pick his brains, to pull this apart so that people can understand exactly, what this protection, this device offers. But in any case, here's my take. So do all that, do the measurable mitigation, and then introduce this, this device. And yeah, why not Synergy? And again, suck it and see. Listen to your body. Plug it in. I don't think it is actually a plug-in device, that one. But anyway, put it in your office or whatever. Put it in your home, and then see how you feel. Give yourself a week. See how you feel. Only buy from companies where you've got a money-back guarantee, okay? Because there's a whole load of junk out there which frankly does nothing. It's got some really great marketing behind it, and but it does nothing. It does nothing, and it gives you this false sense of security, and then that is a slippery slope, and that's what you want to avoid.
Lloyd, thank you for that. We have had Jeff Krebs waiting on the line very patiently now for a while. So Jeff, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and unmute yourself. And if you would ask us your brief question for Lloyd Burrell. Go ahead, Jeff. We can hear you now. Jeff, I see that you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you. Not sure if there's something we can adjust. You know what, Jeff? And now you've gone back. Oh, Jeff, you there? So, Jeff, I'm not sure if there's something on your end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next question for now. And if you can just see if you can figure out maybe there's something going on your end, And so for now, Jeff, I will come back to you shortly. Thanks for your patience. And let's move on to, looks like Joanne Goodman. Joanne, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute. And if you would, we look forward to hearing your brief question for Lloyd. Go ahead, Joanne.
Thank you very much, all of you, for your service. I purchased a silver lining from hoodie from EMF less EMF. I'm not sure, because I'm alone, and the only connection I have with the world now is through my Zoom meetings. And I was getting a headache like after like 15, 20 minutes, even on the regular phone, I was getting head pain, which scared me because my brother died of brain cancer. And like a year before he got diagnosed, I told him, Danny, stop keeping that phone near your head. And anyway, he thought I was making too big of a deal out of things. So back to me, I get this head pain after about 15 minutes, even on the regular phone, on speaker, staying about 4 or 5 feet away. And so I got this hoodie that's silver lined, and they assured me that their meters indicated that it gave 98% protection, but I'm still getting the head pain. Sometimes it feels even worse with the silver thing on it. So I don't know if that's my imagination or what. So I appreciate hearing the benefit of your experience with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. I don't actually recommend shielded clothing particularly, unless it's full body. And then if it's full body, it's like, well, how can you know, who wants to walk around in a bee suit, keeper suit kind of thing? That's the problem. So we're back to the Faraday cage effect. That's the only way to get the complete protection, because any other kind of protection, you know how EMFs work. So they kind of ping round, a bit like, you know, in a bedroom. I don't know if you've ever tried to create total darkness, and then you just have one crack. You know, you've got your blinds and your curtains and everything in one crack, and that one crack, it just like creates a bit of light all around the room, because that's what the light does. Well, that's kind of what EMFs do, radio frequencies in any case. That's the problem. So wearing a cap or wearing any kind of shielded clothing has its limitations unless it's full body, and that's the problem with all of that. And so you do have to listen to your body, and it is actually rather difficult to listen to your body sometimes to get the clear message on whether something is beneficial or not beneficial. But yeah, so I would be, if you're getting a reaction which is not a good reaction to this, then I would be avoiding using those kind of you know, this kind of shielded clothing. And instead what I would be looking at is is like using the speakerphone, is like making distance your friend, is putting distance between you and the device, and you know, all these other ways that we can reduce our exposure, you know, instead of shielded clothing, which is actually putting non-natural materials in close contact with your body. So, you know, always, you know, nature knows best. Think about it like that. Nature knows best. And so most of this shielded clothing actually got metal in it. And, you know, so does that sound healthy? I think not. So that's my take on that one.
Thank you, Lloyd. Much appreciated for all of this. We have a few more questions. And Jeff Krebs, I'm going to come back to you now and see if we can get your mic working. I've just asked you to unmute one more time. If you can go ahead and do that. Jeff, is that you? Jeff, we see you, but we're not hearing you. I don't know if there's a volume control on your end, but if you can, we're gonna come back to you again. If you can try to work this out, we'd love to hear your question. Let me go now to, let's see now, we have got Norma, Pascal. Norma, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, good morning to everybody.
Morning.
Lloyd, question. To block the blue light in computers and iPads, do programs like Iris, for example, work? Or do you think it's better to get like a screen to block them?
Okay. Okay, thank you, Norma. I don't actually know of Iris. I don't know what that is exactly. So what I recommend with regard to the blue lights, I don't know if that's like blue light blocking, a brand of blue light blocking glasses, but what I recommend is the F-Lux, quite simply, F.Lux, L-U-X, because it's free. And I also so that's if you're using a screen. There are other brands also, and I also recommend blue light blocking glasses. So maybe that's what you're talking about. The brand I like is RA Optics, because they've really done the research. Might be a bit more expensive perhaps than the other brands, but they're actually done the research and they're protecting you from certain frequencies of light, and they've got the daylight glasses and the night light glasses, and it's really at night where you need to be particularly careful in terms of protecting yourself from this blue light, which really does throw a spanner in the works in terms of your bodily rhythms, notably your circadian rhythm. So yeah, so I hope that's answered your question. Before you can actually buy filters and things for the screen. I don't recommend that. Just use like F-Lux and with a good brand of blue light blocking glasses. That's what I recommend.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the brand that you prefer?
So the brand is R for Robert, A for Apple, Optics, OPTICS, RA Optics, and it's a gentleman, very young man. It's like 21 years old, brilliant, called Matt Muraka, who's done some really great work on this, and talks very well to this subject of how blue light impacts our health, impacts our mitochondria, and impacts our biology very generally.
Lloyd, thanks for those great suggestions. And we're going to, Jeff, we're going to ask you to unmute one more time. And we see that your mic seems to be working. Hopefully this will work. Jeff, if you can, go ahead. Jeff, can we hear you now? Jeff, I'm so sorry. I'm afraid there just seems to be something amiss with the microphone. So stay tuned for the rest of the conference. Hopefully we can get that worked out. And for any other questions you have in the future, I'm going to move forward now to David A. David, if you would go ahead and unmute yourself and share your question for Lloyd, please. Thank you. Here comes David A., I believe. David A., if you could just, there we go. David, you there? Hi, David. Seems like we have a little bit of an issue there. David, are you there? Yeah, there's something strange going on. It seems like your mic is working, but somehow the sound was really off. So David, we're going to come back to you in a couple of minutes, and hopefully that will have that tech difficulty fixed. Let's go back one more time to Natasha. Natasha, it looks like you have a follow-up question, if you'd unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. I do have a follow-up question. I have been back and forth with the school board in terms of the exposure levels in the school. I have a meter, so I secretly measured the school. And there's towers outside the school on a building that are pointing towards the school, which I think is like crazy, and that nobody is able to see this. The school board came back and said that I need to refer to the Government of Canada website, which hasn't been updated in 20 years in terms of exposure levels. So my question is there a direction in research that you would, one place that might have a whole lot of research? I know there's over 30,000 studies I've been kind of dabbling in. And do you have an approach in terms of schools and how to approach this for the future?
Okay, very good question. Thank you. And yeah, kids. So very bad news that, you know, governments around the world, that school authorities around the world are taking this line, despite all this research which there is there. So the approach, so in terms of the research, it's really the research regarding this radio frequency microwave radiation. That's what these cell towers are emitting. We've got research, there's a lot of research on my website. Just put in cell tower at the bottom. The search is not so good as it was because, well, thanks to Google, it's now sent, so my Google search doesn't work anymore. So I've been deplatformed on Google. So it's the search function's not so good. So it's our own search function, which is not quite as effective. But there is a lot of information. There's a number of studies on these effects, different effects that cell towers have on health. Notably, there's one in a big Brazilian study, which, I mean, studies going back 10, 15 years or more. And also studies on children, a lot of studies on children. There's a Gandhi study. Don't ask me how to spell that, but it's not like Mahatma Gandhi. It's anyway, but it's Gandhi, and it's a 1995 or 1996 study. Lloyd Morgan's done a lot of research on this with the Environmental Health Trust. That's another great resource to go to, Environmental Health Trust, EHT, which is headed by Dr. Deborah Davis. There is also a lady called Sis Doucette, who is a mother who's been down, you know, done all the due diligence on this whole question with her school, and then created a website and so on, and started sharing information on this, on sort of an approach on how to get change, you know, get schools on board, and people and teachers and parents and so on board with what's happening. So yeah, so those are a few. Hopefully that's given you some information to share. So on my website, as I say, EHT is another one. There's a lot of websites, or quite a few anyway. There's a lot of censorship also, but yeah, hopefully that will have helped. And it's a question of bringing people together. There is, just the research that is on my website. There is actually an article on how to protect yourself from cell tower radiation, which explains kind of the protocol also. And that is, I believe it's from the homepage, or if you do a search on that, protect from cell tower radiation, you'll find that. So hopefully that helps, Natasha.
Lloyd, thank you so much. David A., we're going to give you another try. I'm going to ask you to unmute now, and hopefully we've got our sound worked out better on your end. David, are you there? Gosh, David, I have to tell you, I am so sorry. It sounds like we can hear you, but Lloyd, I don't know if you hear it. When we hear David's voice, it sounds like that. Yeah. Squeaky. So David, yes. So David, we're sure you're squeaky clean, but we don't want to hear your voice that way. So with that, I'm going to ask David, hopefully you can get that adjusted on your end. And if you have any questions for our future speakers throughout the conference, please come back. We'd love to have you. Lloyd, with that is all of our questions. And I just, on behalf of our entire audience, really want to thank you on behalf of the conference as well. We have been privileged to have you and your time and your expertise, and you've been very giving with your knowledge. So thank you so much for everything.
It's been a pleasure, Ben. It's great work you're doing here, getting this information out on all these different notes, not just about EMFs, what you're sharing here. And thank you for the invitation to share on this really important topic, which is very close to my heart. And I know you've got some other speakers, Theodora Scarata from the Environmental Health Trust, who's a great speaker too. I love what she's doing too. And so honestly, the more people that speak on this, you know, the more that people begin to understand just how important this is to our lives and to humanity, you know, because when you're looking at what it's doing to sperm counts and fertility rates and so on and so, you know, it's not just cancer. So thanks for allowing me to share on this cancer question, and thanks to everybody who's, you know, been here and asked these great questions and allowed me to be here and share this information. Thank you.